So through those experiences, what I think the ultimate thing that drove me into CampMinder and the way that my career took shape was I got really into music. When
Oh,
I was probably 12, yeah, I was really into REM. I was really into Pearl Jam. I
yeah.
was into They Might Be Giants.
Hmm.
And then
Hmm.
something happened. I heard a tape of Dave Matthews Band playing live.
Okay.
This was right around the time that they were coming out of Charlottesville, Virginia, and I heard like one of these bootleg tapes, and I was like, "What is that?" And then like Under the Table and Dreaming came out, and I got super into Dave Matthews Band as this 13-year-old kid, and that inspired me to create a website. And there had been websites out there about, you know, where you could see the set lists of all the shows that they had played, but there was not really an interactive tool where people could go to a show, submit the set list immediately, write a review about the show, see all the dates they ever played this particular song going back to each song's debut. And I
Wow.
created manually this like catalog, and I called it the Dave Matthews Band Tour Archive.
And how old were you then?
I was probably at that point around 15.
Wow. Okay. Somehow you're finding the time to do this. Wow. Okay. But you loved it. You loved the music. You liked doing it. Okay, cool. All right.
I liked the
Yep.
music. I
Yep.
liked creating something,
Yep.
and what happened was the site started, like reached a point where it was getting millions of hits a month. And
And
I wasn't smart enough to figure out how to monetize that at that time, as a 15-year-old. But
what are your
um,
parents? Is your dad like, hey, you need to figure out how to make money on this deal?
I'm not sure he even realized what I was doing.
Okay.
To be honest with that, if he had, he probably would have had that
All right.
energy. Like, yeah, how do we make money off of this thing?
Wow.
But the irony is that it became so successful. It actually ended up, I merged it in with this other group of sites, but my site brought a lot of traffic in, and
Okay.
it ended up winning these VH1 My Music Awards to make it
What?
even more popular. Yeah,
Wow. Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah. I have this really cool trophy
Are
at my
you
house.
serious? Oh, that's great. Okay, cool. All right. But
So
you're still not making, you're still in high school at this point.
I'm 15. By the time the awards came in, I was in college. And the
Okay.
irony of the story is that this thing I created that had become popular was like a monster out of control. Like every time they would play a show, because all of these pages were updated by hand manually, I was spending more than an hour after every show, like updating these pages by hand.
Mm,
And I was in college, and I was like, I don't really want to do this.
okay.
So the irony is like not wanting to do that anymore is what led me into the next phase,
Okay.
which was, I was continuing to go back to camp as a counselor for a number of years
While you were in college.
while I was in college.
All right.
Of course, the band was always on tour during the summer, and that was another problem. Like I can't even maintain the site during the summer because I'm at camp.
Okay.
Um, but I needed to figure out a way to automate the the data collection and the way that the information would be displayed so that it would be as simple as, put in the set list and now everything is updated automatically.
Okay.
So that's where I got an internship at a company in New York to learn how to do web-based database application development at a time before software as a service, as it's currently known, was a coined term.
Wow. Okay. And I feel the love for the camping and your creative spirit and ability to write some code and computer savviness. It's all headed
It's
towards each other, right?
all coming together. It's all, I remember actually at one of these jobs, and, I had another internship one summer. And there was this guy who was kind of working with me as the intern. And I remember he was feeling really frustrated. He was probably in his mid-20s. And I was like, why don't you just like create something and do that? Like to me, I didn't understand like why everybody couldn't just like figure out something to do that was like, but for me, like everything just kind of like all my passions would come together, and I
Awesome.
landed. I mean, the ultimate story was my first summer not at camp. I was working at this company learning how to do this.
Okay.
I learned how to do this stuff pretty quickly, and for the time where like, I was like, give me some more stuff to do, and they weren't really ready to, give me more. So I was looking at my camp's website, looking at pictures, like longing for like being outside and playing sports and
This is
hanging out.
this is while you're interning in New York.
My
One summer.
first summer not
I see.
not going back to camp.
I can almost visualize it. You're looking, you're online, you're looking at the photos. You're like, I wish I was at camp.
I wish I was at camp. And
All right.
what happened was I stumbled upon my camp's online staff application.
Okay.
And I knew the process for me because I had been on staff, and I filled out a paper form and mailed it back to them. And knowing my camp, knowing that, the owner lived in one place and the staffing person lived in another place and the assistant director lived somewhere else, I didn't even understand how they were sharing these applications with one another. And because I was working on an internet enabled, like really an intranet platform for this company so that people internally in the company could access the same data.
Right.
I was like, wait, this online application is cool that the camp has, but I bet anything that the data is getting emailed to Bob, who is the staff coordinator.
Right.
And I was like, in my head, I'm like, what is Bob doing with this? Like, it's great that he got the information right away and he could forward the email to the other people. But like now he has to interview people and he has to keep track of who these people are, and he's got to determine what their salary is and like keep track of that and deal with their contracts. Yep. So I was like, oh, I see exactly how this should work.
Okay.
So I just went home, and the crazy thing was this was July 4th of 2001. And I had this idea, and it was clear as day, and I had plans to go out with friends for July 4th, but I canceled my plans, and I stayed. At the time, my parents were in Florida, and I was living out of their apartment in downtown New York.
Okay.
And the interesting thing about that particular apartment is actually when my cousin purchased the camp that my dad and uncle went to, he worked out of the same place, probably in the same room. And So I sat down at my computer there, started writing a new staff application where the data would flow directly into a database. And I was just super passionate about it. And I'll never forget hearing like the bang of fireworks outside the window. And I could as I'm launching my company.
It's a moment.
Like this moment.
This is it.
It's like, awesome. Oh, the fireworks are going off. Like I had no idea what that would mean.
The Riderflex Nation podcast can be heard just about anywhere these days, but you can visit riderflex.com and click on our podcast page to hear all the previous episodes and learn more about the recruiting and consulting services we provide. Contact us at the email address info@riderflex.com or 888-964-5876. Thanks so much for listening and have a great day.